Hi everyone. Today I want to explain genetics. This is the first part about genetics. First of all, I want to explain introductory information about genetics. In this part, I will explain what is genetics and historical development of genetics and which scientists are important in genetics. Yeah, let's start with the first part. Now, what is genetics uh, as a term? As you know, genetics is known as branch of biology. Is a one of the branch of biology about inheritance or inherited properties of organisms. Each organism has different properties, and the parents transfer the properties to next generation, and how the properties, the variated properties, actually transfer from one generation to another. This is related with gene expression. All of these subjects related with genetics. So it is the genetics very shortly defined as science of inherited variations of organisms. Now, in the genetics, there are three important subjects. The first subject related with genetic is transmission of genetic traits from one generation to another. As you know, the properties, the genetic properties, I mean, transferred from parents to their offspring. But how? This is one of the subjects of genetics. And the second subject related with genetic is to understand the molecular structure of genetic material and what kind of change happen in the structure of genetic material, and then as a result, how such a change result in some variations in organisms, and also the genetic material can be manipulated, changed, modified. So how such a various application is made on the genetic material. These are all related with genetics again. And as a third, genetic expression or expressions of genes. It is named as gene expression. And that means how the gene product is produced and how the phenotypes are formed in molecular level. So these are all really related with genetics. These are three important things concerned with or included in the genetics as a science. Now let's start with the historical development. But before starting historical development, just I want to explain who is the discoverer of genetics as a term, as a name. The first person uh, who named this branch of science as genetics was an English researcher called Bateson in 1906. There is a brief historical development, historical overview of the most important genetic studies that have in progress in this science. Now, that means I want to explain historical development, the very important application, very important findings, very important experiments made by different scientists at different times, and these are all related with genetic historical development of genetics as a science. The first of all, genetic variations for useful types were selected. This is the logic is that some organisms have some desired properties. Quality is high. The properties is really useful for the human being, so they are all selected and harvested and reproduced under human control. So the recognized characteristics were chosen which serve generations considering everyday life requirements, especially in the agricultural field. You know, we have many domestic animals. They are selected, especially for getting some nutrients, milk products, or some their hairs, their skin are used for our requirements. They are also used for transport. So, because of their good desired properties, they are selected and reproduced uh, under control of human beings. So, this is the first one. Desired properties are selected and harvested and reproduced more than others. And the second is Mendel produced a system to control hereditary qualities which was not associated with sex. So the Mendel, as you know, studied about some plant varieties and discovered some traits not related with sex, but it is autosomic traits. And then he made a controlled experiment about especially peas, some plant varieties, and then discovered special rules and ratios named as Mendelian rules or Mendelian ratio. And later he published an article in 1866. His title, his publication was named as Research on Some Vegetable Hybrids. But unfortunately, no one, any of the scholars during that time, paid no attention because that time the hot topic was evolution. So not the last, but the third is discovery of Mendelian's experiment. Actually, uh, 34 years later, the Mendel's experiments are repeated by some other scientists, and then they discover the same results, same rules, and then they publish their findings as Mendelian findings. And because of that, the many scholars pay attention to these discoveries, and that's why this time is named as Golden Age, because until that time, no one knows the chromosomes carrying some genes, and then the traits, heritable traits, are carried on the chromosome on the genes. Until that time, it was not known, but after that, it is discovered and known.